On today's video, we went Uber driving in Jacksonville, Florida, and we picked up a passenger in Moncrief, the most dangerous neighborhood in all of Jacksonville, at 3 in the morning, Friday night. So on today's video, you're going to get to see me Uber driving in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in the entire state of Florida, Jacksonville's gang war zone area. But first, we start off Uber driving in Jacksonville Beach. We'll warm up to that last trip later on. Now, the first passenger of the night was a young girl who was going from a nightclub here in this area all the way back to a military base. This ride was at 1:35 a.m. and she gave me a $5 tip. Now, interestingly, every single ride that I did on this evening came with a very generous tip, which means that you can make a lot of money Uber driving during the weekends in Jacksonville Beach. Just figure that this short ride, only 7 minutes long, made me $14. This passenger actually lived in the same metropolitan area where I currently live, somewhere in Tampa, Bradenton, Sarasota area, so we got off to a great conversation. Now, usually I don't really start conversations with a female passenger this late at night, but despite the fact she was coming from a nightclub, she seemed to be completely sober, and because we were from the same metropolitan area, we had a great conversation. Usually when there's a female passenger, I don't like to start conversations late at night, because that usually makes them feel very nervous. But this girl did not seem nervous at all. We had some great conversations about the metropolitan area where we live, and it was just kind of weird that she was there from down here, and so was I. So you guys know I live in the Sarasota area, and I can say that overall, Uber driving in Jacksonville pays significantly more than Sarasota. However, many of the neighborhoods that you're going to find in Jacksonville are much scarier. However, it's not uncommon for you to find on a daily basis $14 surges in the Jacksonville area. You simply will not get that consistently in Sarasota. It's a rare thing to find here. So overall, I can say that Uber driving in Jacksonville area is much more profitable than Uber driving in Sarasota. It's considerably more profitable than Tampa and Orlando as well. It seems when it comes to Uber driving, Jacksonville really is one of the most profitable cities in Florida. I think if you made a good route and knew what you were doing, you could consistently make about $48 an hour Uber driving in Jacksonville. Incredible as well is the fact that every single passenger tipped except for the one passenger that we're leaving for last in that neighborhood of Moncrief that's notorious for being the most dangerous neighborhood in all of Jacksonville. But for the meantime, our first 4 passengers all gave me very generous tips. This night was very profitable. Interestingly, I went back the second night and my experience wasn't as good, but that will be another video that's coming soon as well. On this evening, I took 3 people to the military bases that are along the coast of Jacksonville. Of course, I'm not going to show you guys the entrance to those places because the nature of the location, but I'll show you guys what the rides were about. The next ride was to the same location. In 4 minutes and 2 miles, I made almost $8. My third trip of the night was almost identical to the first, except for it had $1 extra because there was a $1 surcharge. It even already came with a $5 tip included. So these were practically identical rides from the same bars to the same base, and it became repetitive. I was ready to do this, but I was really tired. It was now approaching 2:30 in the morning. I was exhausted. Despite the fact I had never done Uber driving in Jacksonville, these 3 repetitive rides to the same exact place became redundant, and I wanted to do something different. So despite the fact it was late at night and I was tired, I went for it. I decided to actually go and Uber drive in areas that were more sketchy. So I got a ride heading into Jacksonville. I pick up this guy at one residential neighborhood and I dropped him off at the next. There's no tip included here, and that is because he gave me a $20 cash tip. That was freaking awesome. This young man was drinking with his chick and he decided to go home, but he didn't want to drive because he had been drinking. So he was pretty cool. He actually handed me a $20 bill cash, and that was pretty awesome. And we took him from one residential address to the next. So as you can see, the generosity of these passengers on this evening in Jacksonville was incredible. And I'm going to tell you more about the passenger experience of driving an Uber in Jacksonville on the next video. But tonight's video has to be a little bit shorter because we're going to get to what we came for. After this ride, I headed off into the city of Jacksonville, and we turned on the Uber app in the heart of one of the most dangerous places in Jacksonville. So I had to ignore a few really good notifications for passengers on the beach because after all, for today's video, we wanted to experience what it's like to Uber drive in some of the most dangerous inner city neighborhoods in Jacksonville, Florida. Well, it's no secret that Moncrief is the most dangerous street in Jacksonville with the most notoriety. So with the Uber app on, I cruise through Moncrief at night, heading northbound, waiting for a notification. Now it's around 3 a.m. and I'm getting a lot of notifications for rides in other parts of the city. It seems like there really isn't too much Uber driving going on in this particular neighborhood, so I had to pass up on a few rides in other directions. Ultimately, the goal would be that because I'm in this particular neighborhood, I would eventually get a Uber ride out of this neighborhood. As you can see, at around 3 in the morning, there's nobody out here. This is in fact one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Florida. And on a weekend at this time, you would assume that most of the people taking Uber in a neighborhood like this would probably be up to no good. In fact, recently an Uber driver in this particular neighborhood or area of Jacksonville on the north side picked up a person, took them to a destination. The person was actually being set up. There was a hit on the guy, and they took out the guy, but they also took out the Uber driver, a completely innocent person working in this neighborhood as an Uber driver, lost his life simply because he had the wrong passenger. So Uber drivers in Jacksonville have recently lost their lives working these neighborhoods. So this isn't a joke. This is a serious neighborhood. Now, the people that live in this neighborhood, they may take an Uber every single day, and it's just part of normal life. But unfortunately, the reality is that sometimes these particular neighborhoods even have a price surcharge late at night because Uber drivers just refuse to go to these neighborhoods. Of course, for the people that live in this neighborhood, this is simply home and their day-to-day activities, but people really are afraid of these neighborhoods. And I'm going to be telling you something that right about now, I'm actually en route to get my passenger, I believe, and I am nervous. I'm actually thinking and contemplating canceling the ride. I was that scared. I had a passenger. I was going to do this. And I'm not going to lie, I was afraid. It's one of the most dangerous neighborhoods in Florida. I'm going to pick somebody up at 3 in the morning. And I didn't really, with Uber, you don't really get a lot of time to look at it. You have like 2 seconds to say yes or no. You only get a general idea of the area. And it was from this neighborhood to another area not far away. So I was actually pretty scared. And I'm not going to lie, I actually thought about canceling the ride. But I said, you know what, I'm here and I got to go through with it. Now, in these types of neighborhoods, we have them where I live in Sarasota, Florida, and areas of Bradenton. Sarasota, late at night, you can pick up somebody in the worst neighborhood, which is Newton. I've done it more than once, dropped people off, picked them up. I haven't really had a single problematic passenger in that area, other than one homeless guy who clearly was a little problematic, but, he wasn't like hostile. He just wanted to do stuff, like he wanted me to make several stops that he wasn't going to pay for. And then when I told him that that I couldn't do it, then he was like, well, you're going to charge me. And I'm like, yeah, it's the business. It's not a charity, buddy. We're not here for helping you. We're here for making money. So anyways, I'm used to working bad neighborhoods in Sarasota and Bradenton at night. I have literally stopped taking passengers in Bradenton at night. Bradenton at night is a complete crap hole of a place to Uber drive. I also did a video where I did some Uber driving in the worst neighborhoods of Tampa late at night. So here we are. We're going to enter a residential neighborhood now. I cannot show you the exact house where I picked the person up. You have to give your passengers their privacy. But I'm en route. And again, I'm just, every second of this ride, I'm tense, I'm nervous. I'm thinking I'm actually going to like back out of this. I'm like, do I really want to go and pick somebody up this late at night in this neighborhood? And, you know, a lot of times you think about the prejudice, the stereotypes and all that. Obviously, this is a predominantly African-American community. And, you know, all of that comes to mind. And it really sucks for the people that live here because there's a lot of great people that live in this community and they just need to get an Uber ride to work. And sometimes the drivers are scared or cautious. And sometimes that makes the passengers kind of upset. But if you're a passenger, put yourself in the driver's shoes for a minute. You know, you're picking up somebody late at night in a scary neighborhood. You may have your fears and reservations. Now, vice versa. Put yourself in the passenger's situation. If you live in a neighborhood that's bad and you're just trying to get to work, would you want a driver to treat you badly or with contempt because you live in this neighborhood? Clearly, it's a situation where the best thing you could do, and I've learned this already, and sadly, you'll see another video that I'm publishing soon about Uber driving in Bradenton. I kind of have had to learn this the hard way. And by that, I mean I've made some mistakes. And I have a video coming up called I Made Some Mistakes While Uber Driving. And in that video, I'm going to talk about exactly some of the things that I've done wrong with when I go to these types of neighborhoods. And, you know, you still have to give the passenger their respect. Despite the fact that sometimes these neighborhoods are absolutely scary. But you still have to give your passenger the respect they deserve because many times they are just good, hardworking people trying to get to work. So I'm nervous. I'm tense. I'm waiting on this dark residential street for this passenger to show up. And the passenger isn't showing up. As soon as I start driving off, the guy actually walks out. And at this point, I'm nervous because here I am in this sketchy neighborhood. I'm a little worried and concerned for my safety. And the passenger isn't coming out of the house. And I'm starting to think, I'm not going to sit here for 5 minutes in one of these dark streets in Jacksonville. I'm driving off. And I start driving off. And just as I'm driving off, the passenger comes up. He's obviously an African-American male. And I look at him. And he's wearing a work uniform. This guy's going to work, you know. And that was a sigh of relief, you know. Of course, I did text him saying, hey, bro, if you don't come out, I'm leaving, you know. And that was kind of disrespectful on my part, but I would have done that with anybody else. Maybe in a nicer neighborhood, I would have waited, and I would have still said the same thing, but I would have waited more patiently. But, you know, you're on this dark street in Jacksonville, and this person's making you wait, sit for 5 or 6 minutes. It's not going to happen, okay? If you're in a bad neighborhood, and look, you got to understand the passenger. The driver's got to be respectful, but also the passenger, bro. If you know that your neighborhood is scary, don't make that Uber driver sit outside for 5 minutes, bro, because he's probably going to leave with reason. He's going to be like, what the crap? I'm not going to wait 5 minutes in a scary neighborhood in Jacksonville because I don't know if you're setting me up. I don't know. Like, I'm already nervous. I want to see my passenger. Once I saw him, saw that he was in a work uniform, bro, sigh of relief. I played music. And we took him to his destination, which I was hoping would be work since he was wearing a work uniform, right? Then again, I don't know where I'm going. I'm still kind of tense because I'm still feeling it from earlier, you know? I know my passenger's cool. He's sitting back there. I'm playing some, like, music he probably would like. On the left side of us is somebody on the street corner, and they're yelling at another person on the other side of the road. So I got two people one person on the left, one person on the right, and they're outside the vehicle. And they're yelling at each other across this intersection late at night. So by now it's literally like 3:40 in the morning. I mean, it's so late at night that literally people are almost starting to go to work already. But there's still people out there screaming their heads off at 3:40 in the morning at an intersection. So no, I still don't really know where we're going. I got my passenger in the back seat. We're listening to Plies and Kevin Gates. And we're just driving late at night through this neighborhood. I got my windows cracked a little bit. I like to see the wind late at night. I don't like to be trapped in the car. I like my windows down. So full moon, we're still in a fairly sketchy part of the city. I'm taking this person to where I believe is work because he's wearing a work uniform. And we're chill. We're relaxed. Of course, I still don't know where we're going. I just know the general vicinity we're heading in. But it was work. The guy started working at 4 in the morning. And this is why, our prejudices about other people or the neighborhood they live in. And, this guy is going to work at 4 in the morning. Now, I can't show you where he worked, of course. I have to show him his privacy. But it was a very hard line of work. I mean, this dude worked at a place where you got to get your hands greasy. It's a difficult line of work, okay? So here is this guy taking an Uber ride at almost 4 in the morning. He's got to be there at 4. All we hear about Moncrief is young thugs and criminals and gangs and rappers. You've never once seen a video about a hardworking African American going to work at 4 in the morning at a very challenging job site. You don't hear that. All you hear is the gangbanging, the rappers, the shootings, but you've never once seen a video about an African American at 4 in the morning going to work at a job that I tell you I personally couldn't make it a day even when I was young. So all we hear about the shootings, the gangs, and the neighborhoods, and the beefs, and the rappers, and the crime, and this and that. Quietly in the night, 3 in the morning, this guy is heading to work to be there at 4 to do some really hard work. That is sadly the story you don't hear. The hardworking person. Here in Sarasota, we have a place called Newton. It's an African American community, and there are projects in there. And I go in there all the time. And my passengers are some of the nicest people I've ever met. But these are people who can't tip. And here's the problem. I can't dedicate myself to working Uber in dangerous neighborhoods where people can't tip. And they're not bad people. The problem is if they're living in government housing or in poor inner city neighborhoods, they can't tip you. And you saw the whole night, it was just $20 tip, $5 tip, $10 tip, the whole night. While on the beach, there are $20 bills being handed out as tips. You could take 4 or 5 rides in one of these neighborhoods and the total fare may not be $20. And that's really the problem, that these areas, the rides are very few, and many of the passengers that you get in these places are going to be those stereotypes. Luckily for me on this evening, I got a hard-working person going to work. But many times in these neighborhoods, the people that you get really are those stereotype people. They're really going on a run using an Uber driver, using you as a cover for something illegal, and it happens, like Uber drivers get hurt. It's happened to me more than once where I pick up somebody in a neighborhood like this and they're actually up to something really sketchy. Now, here in Bradenton where I live, I've gone to pick up people for Uber driving, and when I pull up, they look at me and they're like, oh, you're not the candidate we're looking for. We're looking for a different type of Uber driver. In other words, they see me and for some reason or another, they think that I'm not really the driver they want is something specific, which means that they're doing something sketchy and I don't really match the profile they want for this operation. So it happens. Now, I have to drive all the way back to Jacksonville Beach, the hotel we're staying at, which is a good 30-minute drive, even late at night. And it felt way longer than that because, I was just exhausted from the road trip we were on to Jacksonville and all the videos we made throughout the day. And now I'm Uber driving late at night. While I'm driving back, bro, this Uber app is like at $9 surges. And it's like bing, 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 ride, ride, ride. It's now 4 in the morning. And if I wasn't so tired, I could have easily made, I think, $50 an hour getting people to work in the morning. And in some of these parts of Jacksonville, something strange happens. And it is that the people that live in the white neighborhoods have to get to the black neighborhoods for work. All the commerce and business is in Jacksonville, so the people who live in the suburbs have to drive into Jacksonville for work. But the black people that live in the inner city, they work for service jobs for the white people, so the black people have to drive to the white areas for work. It's the strangest thing ever that the white people are afraid of where the black people live, but the black people in the daytime have to work in the houses and communities where the white people live, and the white people have to go to the black people's neighborhoods where they work. It's so weird that in the morning I'm looking at this app and it's one ride from this part of town to that part of town and from that part of town to that part of town, and then you realize how stupidity filled the notion of segregation is. The white people live in the suburbs, the black people live in the inner city, but the black people have to go to the suburbs and the people in the suburbs have to go to the inner city. And this crossbreeding of transportation happens every single day in a lot of American cities. Jacksonville being one of those cities where the people in the black area go work in the white area and the people in the white area go black in the black area. Why doesn't everybody just live together? This costs people money. Literally, there's a surge because people are trying to go from this direction to that direction and from that direction to this direction. But if everybody just lived in normal neighborhoods, it didn't matter what race you were, we wouldn't have this problem. But I find it interesting, and when I lived in Naples, Florida, the same thing would happen where the people that were very wealthy were afraid to go to the poor neighborhoods. But the people in the poor neighborhoods, we're inside of your house all day long working in it. And at the end of the day, we have to go back to our neighborhoods where we live. It's just very strange if you think about it. And this happens in the whole entire world. The rich people are afraid to go to the poor people's neighborhoods, but the poor people are inside your house half the day working for you. It's so weird and ironic that we as humans are this petty. As I'm driving on this interstate and these rides are pinging nonstop, the only thing that's on my mind is the black people are getting up to go work for the white people, and the white people are coming to the interstate to work in the black neighborhoods where they wouldn't want to live. How weird and ironic. It's so strange. I mean, when I lived in Naples, Florida, I would encounter these people, and they'd be like really afraid of going into the poor neighborhoods with the Hispanic community. Like in South Florida, the Hispanics are the blacks of Jacksonville, let's say. Whatever, same thing. You have rich people, you got poor people. Sometimes the races, whatever. But the interesting thing, as I always worked in these communities in Naples, was just the notion of how scared these rich people were to go into the poor communities where we, the workers, lived. But we got to go inside of their houses and get trusted with their cars, their keys, and sometimes the security codes to enter their property. So on one hand, here's somebody that lives in a poor neighborhood, and you have to give them your house key, your car key, and the security code to get in your community. And the person that works in the front gate of your community also lives in that same bad neighborhood, but you're afraid to come over to our neighborhood late at night. But all the people from our neighborhood have to go inside your house in the daytime and get your key code, your house key, your key fob, your car key, and even more than that. It's very strange that humans don't realize that the same people that you're letting in your house and you're giving your house keys and car keys and entry codes to are the same people that live in the neighborhoods that you are afraid to go to. Anyways, driving through beautiful downtown Jacksonville at night, heading back to the beach, I love Uber driving. It's a really awesome experience, and I really wish I had the energy to meet these people that were heading to work. Unfortunately, I was exhausted, and I probably did more than I should have on this evening as I arrived to the hotel to take a shower at something like 4:30 in the morning. However, I do love Uber driving. The money isn't always great, and some of the people you meet are horrible, but in the case of the people of Jacksonville, it was really neat talking to the people. Now, I would imagine in a city like San Francisco where people don't like to talk, it would be an absolute nightmare. Or maybe like Broward County, cities that are just more populated, or more, I don't know how to, I can't find the right words, but there's some cities, the nature of those cities, people are more reclusive, and driving in those places absolutely sucks. A few nights ago here in Sarasota, I got one of these yuppies. They sit in the backseat of the car, and they refuse to talk to me. I pulled up at the next intersection and told them to get out. Not that I have to force a person to talk to me, but they wouldn't even acknowledge me. They were just like blank stare type of person, didn't want to talk to me. Get out. Call another Uber. I really enjoyed Uber driving in Jacksonville because Jacksonville has a lot of rednecks. And rednecks like talking. And I really enjoyed Uber driving in Jacksonville. Let me tell you, I've Uber driven in a few cities already. Down Tampa, Sarasota, Naples, Fort Myers. I think I did briefly Broward County. I can't remember. I've done it like in a few different places already. And the place that I have enjoyed Uber driving the most has actually been Jacksonville, because there's a lot of young people, there's a lot of rednecks. They really like talking and they have real conversations. And I really enjoy that. So on the next video, I'll tell you guys a little bit more about the second night in Jacksonville. Of course, on that night, I stuck to nothing but the money areas, but I didn't get as much tips. But we'll talk about the passengers we met. Checking out from Jacksonville. Had a beautiful night there.